Can you hear me typing? My team makes fun of me because I type too loudly.
Did she poke and peck?
Apparently I slam the keys. You'll have to ask Heather. Okay, welcome. We are live. We are almost through with this book study, guys. We're in chapter 19, and this chapter is Accept That You Will Be Tested. So a couple quick housekeeping things. Friday, my lovely team leader, Stephanie, is going to be joining us for Connect the Dots and kind of putting a bow on it. And then I want you to save the date, July 1st. Mo herself is going to be here from 12 to 1. We get an hour of her time. Where we can ask more questions, get more insights, and share some gratitude. And my hope is that you will have things to share back with her about how this study's impacted you. So July 1st from 12 to 1 Central Time. And today we are joined by the lovely Leigh Bogar. Hello.
Hi.
And
so glad to be here.
Is Leigh picked this chapter because she has been tested. So real quick to start off, Mo talks about in this chapter, Accept That You'll Be Tested, that she almost didn't put this in the book because all the rest of her chapters were really uplifting and positive. And then there's this one. Hey, life is great, and oh, it's gonna stink, and life is great, and life is great. So Leigh, welcome, and thank you for coming in for the stinky chapter.
Well, I actually don't think it's a stinky chapter. I think it's actually one of the best, and I'm kind of glad it was at the end because I think that testing in our lives is an opportunity for growth. And without testing, sometimes we don't grow very much. We get a little complacent. So I actually think it's great.
So
glad
Leigh,
to be here.
Tell me quickly, for those that don't know Leigh, tell me a little bit about your husband and your team and where your locations are and just a little bit about you.
Sure. Grew up in Houston, went to Baylor, moved to Colorado 34 years ago, and my husband got into real estate in 92 or 93, much to my chagrin because I was the daughter of a real estate agent. She worked in Houston for 40 years, and I thought, oh no. And my mom really didn't have many boundaries, so it was kind of a challenging growing up. As back then, I would be sitting in the driver's or the passenger seat, and we'd be looking at the MapQuest. Where are we going? Where are we going? But it was great, and it was a good foundation for me to learn. Anyway, Joe got into real estate in 94, 92, or 93. I, at the time, was doing estate planning for really wealthy people. Loved that job. It was a great first job. And then I had two girls. And then Joe just began to just flourish in real estate. He was one of the most disciplined people. I was just telling Missy, he is the kind of person that when he first got into real estate, he went to a Mike Ferry conference. This is before KW was really big. And he learned how to run his real estate as a business. And he came back and he started lead gen from 9 to 11, 11:30 every day. And everybody thought he was weird. They couldn't understand it. What's he doing? He wasn't a water cooler kind of chit chat guy. Not that he's poopy or, he's a pretty fun guy. He just is really disciplined. And he doubled his business for the first 5 years every year. So we saw a lot of growth, and eventually he added more and more people on his team, came to KW in 2003 or 2004, right about the time that things were beginning to change and the REO business was starting and the crash was happening. And we got into the REO business for about 3 or 4 years. And that was a challenge, but we did some of our biggest volume during that time. It was great. Talk about being tested. We almost went bankrupt during that time. So that was a real challenge. Lots of conversations around that period of time about, what's best. Made it through. In fact, one of the things was, I don't know if any of you were in the REO business, but it's pretty cut and dry. So not relationally oriented at all. Banks aren't really relational. And towards the end of all of that, I was like, Joe, let's go back to our bread and butter and the people that love us. Because, that was what we built our business on. And so we went back to doing more of the residential stuff and it took off. 2010-ish, Joe was asked to be a coach for MAPS, Keller Williams MAPS coaching, and he hasn't looked back since. It is one of his favorite things to do, to build into people. He loves it. He loves building into teams. He loves building into other coaches, and he has the opportunity to really do that. He served as president of MAPS for a year and a half or so, and then has gone back into coaching, which he loves. And we have gone through a lot. So I would say that's professionally. Personally, just to give you some sense of why I believe I'm the person to be doing this chapter. Over the last 6 years, we've lost 4 parents each year for 4 years. My mom went through 4 years of cancer, and my girls have faced some really tough things. So tough that it was really hard. And yet I wouldn't trade it for the world. So that's kind of my background. I'm working with Wendy Papsan on the Papsan Properties Group team as Director of Community Relations. Love working with her. I love our team. I love all aspects of that, and it's really a great opportunity. So we moved from Colorado to Austin for Joe to take that job, and we spend about 3 weeks a month in Austin and 1 week a month in Colorado, because I have a ministry in Colorado that I go back to serve on once a month.
That's amazing. Well, I think you're incredible. I first met Leigh at Amplify. My coach actually connected us, and I was pretty excited. And I know that your husband is a big deal in Keller Williams, and I just know you, and I think you're a big deal.
Oh, you are so sweet, Missy. I'm really not. One of the things I was telling somebody yesterday is that my belief is that if I can really deeply pour into a group of women or a group of people individually and focus, that multiplication can be enormous. And I think that I may be able to have more of an impact in that way, in some ways that way. So that's my passion.
Beautiful. Well, I'm glad you're here. So let's dive in. In chapter 19, Mo talks about some of the big curveballs that she and Richard dealt with. And in her momentum builders, I really love it. By the way, I just want to share quickly, Steve is here, but he's not here. I think probably because he's by himself with the kids. So we kind of accidentally got into real estate, and it was one of the darkest times in our life, because I started out answering phones and worked as an unlicensed assistant, and then I got pregnant, and we saved up money for me to get licensed, and I was going to have a baby on a hip. I've shared this before, have a baby on a hip and do no work and drive a Lexus. And then my husband lost his job of 17 years in engineering. So we took that money and got him licensed, and we have just not really looked back since. We had a very rough first few years, and I don't regret it for anything.
Yeah.
So in this chapter, Mo talks about finally building her dream home, and 90% complete, and a lightning strike burned the whole thing down. Talk to me about some of those times in your life where you felt that it was just that your life was kind of burning down to the ground, and tell me about how that has made you stronger.
I would tell you about the bankruptcy period, but we didn't actually go into bankruptcy, but that solidified some things. Let me start off with a little story. I am a believer in Jesus, and so my belief is stemmed in growth in the Bible. And there's a story in Joshua 4 about the Israelites have been in the wilderness for 40 years, and they are about to cross over to Canaan. And God says, well, I want you to put 12 stones as representations of what you've gone through, how I've sustained you, cared for you, etc. And I go back to that story a lot because if I look at my life, there's a lot of stones. And that there was a stone in the 90s when we went through kind of the change. I was actually getting the MBA when Joe started real estate. So it was crazy. And he went through a whole family business that fell apart, and we were liable for hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt that his dad had created that we were sort of may have ultimately weren't in charge of, but potentially were. So and I look at these stones and how we have just been sustained. So that the one that probably sticks out for me the most is my mom was in the middle of cancer treatment, which actually was amazing. She since passed away in 2018, but she had, for cancer, she had an amazing 4 years of opportunities. She was in the middle of it, and my younger daughter was really struggling to live, just didn't want to live. And some things happened, and I was devastated. I just really didn't know what's next? How are we going to do this? And yet, like in a 24-hour period, it just solidified my faith. It solidified that I can do anything. I can survive anything. And I love that about testing. And so now I can look at testing or challenges or losses and realize I'm going to make it through. And I would not trade that for the world. It was difficult for sure, but such a great opportunity. And my mom's cancer was hard because she was in Houston and I was in Denver, and I was raising teenagers at the time. At the same time, I was flying to Houston often. So that's kind of where my basis for why I think testing is so important. Do you want me to tell you a little bit about what I learned from that? I mean, I can kind of jump ahead in this lesson.
I'm here to hear your story. That's what we're here for.
Well, one of the things, and COVID is another testing opportunity, all the chaos that we've had. And I firmly believe, I have another strong belief, and that's the thing, as you grow and learn over time, we develop those beliefs that either propel us to better ourselves or propel us to go backwards. And one of the beliefs I have is that gratitude and the act of appreciation has changed my life over the last probably 6 or 7 years. And that is how I have really thrived, not just survived. So that's one of my themes, is I want to thrive, not just survive life. Is I have just been able to get up every day during all of this COVID, and I am so grateful. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful to be able to have a home. I just have a lot of gratitude. I'm grateful for friendships. I know last chapter was about friendships, and I fly to see my friends now. That's how important they are. So long-term relationships. I just was at a wedding Sunday of a friend of mine whose daughter, we had our baby showers together, and she got married, and it was so joyous to kind of watch the ebb and flow and growth. So that's kind of where I've grown. What else, Missy?
Does gratitude come naturally for you, or is that a skill that you had to kind of learn?
I would say it's a skill. I mean, I am a very grateful, optimistic person overall. In fact, my girls get a little frustrated with me because I'm always like, oh, well, there's a silver lining. I'm kind of a silver lining person, and I'm really trying to, in life and relationships, let people express and be present with their sadness and not necessarily give the silver lining, but that is my tendency. But I think gratitude has really developed over the last few years as I've faced these challenges that, my friends keep saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're alive or standing or happy. Because it's just, things I've shared with you are kind of the surface of what we've gone through. Thankfully, I am married to my best friend, and we've been married 34 years this year. We've known each other almost 40. And so I have a partner in life, and I'm very thankful for that as well. So yeah, I think it's a learned activity for sure. But it changes your brain.
Cards are in. Look, Leigh. Oh,
I love it. I love it.
What I was thinking about when you were saying that, and I'm really gonna age myself here, and maybe you too. Did you ever watch Pollyanna?
Oh yes.
When you said silver lining, it made me think about that.
Yeah, I'm not Pollyanna-ish completely. And yet the last 3 or 4 years have made me much more able, willing. I mean, I really, during COVID, when we got shut down, if you can't tell, I'm a bit of an extrovert. I love people. I love seeing people. I love investing in people's lives. I love participating in people's lives. I love languages, quality time. And so it was hard. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't see all my buddies. And I think the way that I combated that was the gratefulness and appreciation of others. And so, yeah, it was great. Oh, looky there. Yeah. Is that your journal, Heather? Yeah.
She keeps a gratitude journal, and she's been doing it how many days now?
It'll be 2 years in October.
You think it's changed your
Yes.
mental?
Absolutely
Yeah.
it does.
They say it actually changes the chemistry in your brain.
Yeah, I mean, it's default for me now. And there are some days where I'm like, coffee or my snoring dogs in the background or having a lazy Sunday. Like, sometimes it's real deep and sometimes it's coffee. And that's totally fine. Like, I think just the practice of the gratitude and being more aware of the little things, as well as, I mean, we're obviously aware of the big things, and being able to focus on just the little things like puffy cloud days and a cool breezy morning so I can sit outside, are just being aware of that kind of thing and looking for those things makes everything so much lighter.
Yeah, I'm in Colorado right now, and looking at the mountains just gives me great joy.
Oh, I'm so jealous right now. I lived in Colorado Springs before I moved here. And Steve was like, oh, we've got plenty of walking and hiking, and it's so pretty here. And I get here and it's just flat and red.
Where'd you grow up, Missy? I thought you grew up in Oklahoma.
I'm a Navy brat.
That's right. We talked about that.
So just kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
So Leigh, let me ask a question. Diving in a little bit on some of these struggles that you've had, did you always feel that you were a pretty strong person, or did you as these tests have come in your life, do you feel like you get stronger with each one? What are some of those internal things that go on when you're being tested?
Wow. Well, I grew up in Texas, so I'm pretty heavy Texas stock in that way. And my parents divorced when I was in high school. So I think, I think you have the opportunity as a child of divorce to really learn and grow. And I can't say that I did it well. I think it was probably in my 30s, maybe early 40s, where I really was able to shed some of the stuff that came along with that. And as I did, my strength became much stronger. So I think now when I'm faced with new challenges or things that are difficult, one, I try to assess kind of where am I? What is the worst case scenario? And I'm not really a worst case scenario person. I'm really a best case scenario person. And I look at the worst case and I go, I can handle that. I think I learned through a lot of experiences. I mean, I can't say that life has by any means been easy. I think, having children, one of the other things that we've gone through is infertility, about 5 years of infertility. And so had my first daughter later than I expected, and then my second daughter 4 years later. So the funny thing about it is that both times I had no idea. There wasn't intentionality. There was not all the intentionality that we had tried to create did not create a child, and it came totally by surprise. So, but again, just great timing. My second daughter was born about 9 months after my grandmother died. And I had a second child during that last year of her life, and I was really close to her. She lived in Lubbock, and I lived with her for about a year when Joe was finishing up Texas Tech. So she was really, really close to me, and I spent 12 weeks that final year with her, and I wouldn't have been able to do that with 2 kids. So just great timing. Hindsight's 20/20 for sure, and yet I love being the age I am, which I don't care if you guys know, but I'm older, and I love being my age because I can look at all of those milestones and see. And I think that even somebody in their 20s can look at milestones and really assess what they've gone through. So
let me ask this. We've got a little less than 10 minutes left, so I want to open it up to questions. And I have a question. One thing that I really have learned to do in the last few years is work on self-awareness and emotional intelligence, which I think really keeps me mostly out of victimhood. I mean, I want to go there sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you do when something happens? What do you do internally? Like, what are some of the things you think about as you're processing what's going on, kind of the internal work of it?
Well, internally, honestly, because of my faith, I do a lot of praying and asking and questioning and seeking. I often seek in God's word, in the Bible, what's maybe said about that, my situation or what I'm feeling. I process a lot with Joe. So I'm an external processor. I process out loud. I'm not much of an internal processor. So most of my kind of, if you would say, how do I deal with those things? I will process with either a close friend or Joe or God, and I'll just start talking.
Yep.
And I think I've written down positive, negative, those kind of things. What other questions? I don't, does that help?
Yeah, I love that. Alex, I'll come to you in just a second. What's interesting is I am both internal and external. So I will get really quiet and then I unload on Steve. So like, I need a minute, maybe a day, and then I'm going to talk his ear off. And it's torture for him because it's, Missy, I need a resolution and I need to know what you're thinking and feeling. And then it's like, whoa, girl, I need a break.
I think that sounds like Joe and I. Yep. And you guys, Joe and I have been in business together we consider ourselves in business together for the last 20 some odd years. And actually it's been great. When we were doing REOs, I was in charge of the REOs. And so we kind of have always had sort of our roles. And I finally had to say to Joe probably 10 years ago, honey, can you get a business partner? Because I really need somebody else processing some of that with you, because he's a visionary and I'm the practical. So I'd be poo-pooing his vision because I think of all the things that have to be done. Does that make sense? Oh, Steve, you're like me.
And no, it's time for Alex's question. We're going to just skip to Alex's question.
Okay, good. What's Alex's question?
So that Steve can't answer that.
Hi, Leigh. It's nice to meet you.
Hi, Alex.
Hi. Okay, so one of the things that I learned growing up with a big family is I love taking advice from people who are very knowledgeable, who are older than me, who are especially like knowledgeable and stuff, especially like this. So it's great to be able to talk to you about this. In the beginning, you talked about boundaries that your mom didn't necessarily have. My question for you is, did you learn from, or what boundaries did she lack in, and what boundaries maybe did you learn from her that could possibly help me going into real estate?
Oh, excellent question. My mom, and she was, granted, she was going through a divorce, so she really had to make money. So I preface it by that. But she had no boundaries, like for the phone. And, and this was before cell phones. This was before all of that. But she would answer the phone during dinner. There was literally no time that she wouldn't answer the phone. And this is, my mom was a lovely woman, and she was very successful at real estate for 40 years in Houston. The other thing that she did, Alex, was that we were on vacation, and she would not tell anybody she was on vacation. And I have watched my husband. My husband actually is the opposite of my mom. He has really good boundaries. When he went into real estate, back then somebody said, well, you have to do open houses to do business. And my husband was like, well, no, that's my family time on Sundays. And he just said, no, I'm really not going to. I'm going to work a different way. I'm going to do business different. Now I would say open houses are really important if you're a buyer's agent and you need clients. But at the time, he was really listing focused. So I think understanding and having all of the people around you understand that you will set boundaries, that they are valuable enough that you won't answer the phone during dinner, or you won't answer the phone on vacation. I think the other boundary is that you are allowed as an agent to have alone time. You're allowed to have your own personal time, and it needs to go on your calendar. And if somebody asks, can I have something during that time? Can you show me a house? You can say, you know what, I've got an appointment and I'm so sorry, but I would be happy to do it at a different time. I think those scripts and learning those scripts of being able to say no to clients is vitally important, because real estate families can suffer mightily at the hand of real estate. And Joe and I actually we used to argue, because I'm a little bit more like my mom, and he'd be getting a call, and I was like, I'd see who it is, and I go, can you answer that call? And he's like, no, this is my whatever time. And so we still challenge about that, but I value that he does that. Does that answer your question? So practicing saying no, practicing understand what your boundaries are, and understand what you would make an exception for. And
Do you do that? Like, have you learned that from your mom? I know that you said that your husband has. You do? Okay.
Yes, I do. And I've learned from Joe, and I have learned that by taking a call in the car when I'm with my daughter and we're having a conversation is dishonoring to her. And having somebody trapped in a car with you and you're on the phone makes it really hard. Now, if you're on a long car drive or something, that's a different thing. But if you're doing a 20-minute drive, whoever's calling you probably can wait. Wendy Papstan says this as well. She says, in real estate, there's very few emergencies. Really there are. So we just need to be mindful of that. And I think it's just being mindful. Who am I with? And am I going to be present? And being present is really important to me now. Does that answer your question? Okay.
That was wonderful. We've got, it's 12:46, and we can maybe do one more question. Wendy has a question about your artwork.
Oh, it's actually my aunt's. I stay with my aunt. And I don't know where she got it. What else?
All right, one more question. Stephanie, you look like you want to say something. I know you too well. There you go.
Hey, Leighs. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I just wanted to say that, I've met your husband when I was a team leader at a different market center. It was, he was coaching one of my agents that I was trying to help him build a team. And he literally helped Joe Brooks go from double his income in his business the first year. And then that year we were at Orlando for family reunion, and we were at Harry Potter World.
Oh yeah.
And we all kept riding the same roller coaster because you could just, there was no line because it was just Matt's coaching. And I thought, you know what, you're a good guy if you can ride a roller coaster this many times and keep up with us.
It totally sounds like my husband.
Yeah,
totally.
It was so fun, and he's a good guy, and I now know that he's got a great wife. You just are fabulous, and I loved your message. It is those difficult things that help us become who we are.
Yes,
so thank you.
I think my closing statement would be develop a circle of friends. Where the sum of the 5 people we're with. Find those 5 people that you can call at 4 a.m. I have a group, actually a couple of groups that I could do that with, and develop those relationships, stick with those relationships through thick and thin, give them lots of grace and love on them. And, my friends have gone through some really hard things, and it's been great to walk alongside them.
Leigh, thank you so much for sharing today, and some personal things as well. And I'm so glad to know you, and I especially appreciate the way that you always lift me up and pour into me.
Oh, well, my pleasure. And I love getting to know you, Missy. I love getting to see you more and more. You go, girl. I can't wait to hear about what we were talking about earlier. So
yep, you got it.
Thank you, everybody. It was fun to see everybody, and thanks for participating.
Yep. We'll see you guys Friday, and don't forget July 1st, 12 to 1 with Mo. Love you guys.
Very fun. See ya. Bye.